You ever had one of those mornings where you wake up and you see an article written by somebody on the left and it just makes you laugh your fucking ass off? And then within 20 minutes, you've been shadow banned on Twitter for pointing out how fucking stupid it is. Well, David, we're going to talk about your article today because your article is what made me laugh my ass off. In fact, my initial expression was something akin to Betsy DeVos's right here, and then I burst out in laughter. First of all, let's start with the fucking title. School vouchers aren't working, but choice is. Okay, school vouchers aren't working, but choice is. That's almost like saying choice isn't working, but choice is. So that's the foot you're starting off on. And then it continues. So this all seemed to stem from the study released by the Department of Education at behest of Betsy DeVos, looking at the, in particular, Washington, D.C. voucher system and how that had been affecting the students in the D.C. system. So apparently, and you can look at yourself, the study guide's right there. Let's see, where is it? There's I'll put the link in the description or something, but here's the link. ies.ed.gov, and then all this other crap. That's the big study, but essentially it does show that when taking standardized tests, children who use the voucher system to attend private schools, having previously attended public schools, did not score as well on standardized tests. That's not fucking surprising. That's not surprising at all, because state standards typically have very little to do with any sort of market-facing reality. They don't really have much value to them other than the federal funding that is based on the performance stemming from those standardized tests. So basing your argument on performance that's being measured by state standards, when the state standards have been under increasing scrutiny for, since I was a child. I'm 26 years old, and I can remember all throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, every single grade, standardized testing was under fire. Not just from my parents. Of course it was under fire by the schools because the schools were terrified. That's what their funding was based off of. So when they couldn't get their students to score well on the tests because their teachers were too fucking lazy or stupid, whichever the combination was, they would freak out about changing the standards so that they could get more funding. And that's where the argument tends to die. People are worried about getting funding for public schools instead of actually improving the quality of education. But anyway, that's getting sidetracked. Let's get back to the topic at hand because it does speak to that. So he is basing his entire argument on the idea that students who are enjoying the voucher system aren't doing as well on standardized state tests. Therefore, the voucher system is not working, but choices. Let's continue before I start fucking laughing again. Anyway, yeah, here's this little quick. I bet you this is the first thing he thought when he started writing this article, was this little smart ass comment. Oh, who knew that education could be so complicated? Well, it really wouldn't be that complicated if you focused on the quality. If you just focused on the quality, that's it. If you let your focus stop there, you didn't worry about subsidizing it through the government, you didn't worry about who is attending. If you focused on the quality of the education, as the old movie says, if you build it, they will come. If you build a good school, you will get a reputation for being a good school, and people will attend your school just because of your reputation. I don't think I really have to explain this much. Think about our current Ivy Leagues. The reason they are Ivy Leagues is because they were some of the first established universities that built a reputation so powerful that they're still riding on the coattails of their own reputation. I picture this really high class looking individual from the late 1800s with those long coattails just somersaulting end over end, caught up in the coattails, and they just keep rolling along. Somehow their momentum keeps moving them forward. But they're somersaulting into the future on their own coattails. So that's how powerful reputation is. And I mean, it's not their own. It's not just their coattails that they're coasting on. They get plenty of government subsidies anyway. But I'm getting fucking sidetracked again. So let's get back to the fucking article. The question for us is whether ideologue, blah, blah, blah. Really, I mean, of course, this argument is over ideologies. As we said earlier, it's over free market versus managed competition. So yeah, ideologies are at play. Big fucking deal. And now let's get to the funny part, amongst many funny parts. But what David says right here: the results from Washington are important partly because they defy easy ideological conclusions. They defy easy. What is this? What is this paper, David? What is your op-ed article? What does this amount to? I can tell you what it amounts to. It amounts to an easy ideological conclusion, a far too easy one that is defied by many statistics and many figures. There's a reason you never once looked at employment. You didn't look at student debt. You blew smoke up people's asses about how being more educated will earn you more money, make you live longer, and make you happier. These two last studies that you were referencing are from the early 2000s. From the early 2000s. That was I mean, the market was riding on one of the biggest bubbles it has ever seen. So yeah, of course, people were fucking living in a fantasy world at that point in time. And that's what the studies were. And even those studies only implied that being well educated made you live longer or made you happier. They couldn't draw direct causal conclusions. Yet you feel like you can go ahead and take the agency and just say, yes, they appear to say that being well educated will not only earn you more money, but will make you live longer and happier. And what's funny is this: earn more. That takes you right to, do I have it still up? No, I don't have it up. Let's see where this takes you. Oh, look, New York Times, another New York Times article. Oh, look, it's another New York Times article by none other than David Lionheart. Oh, man, I would really love to meet you in real life and have, or at least attempt a conversation. I think it would be fun to fuck with you. But yeah, so is college worth it? So that's what he's referencing here when he says that being well educated will earn you more money. In his own article here, he goes on to reference income, how if you go to college, you will earn X amount more in income, and that's proven. Well, that may be the case. I don't need to go about trying to disprove that because you didn't bother to look at debt, employment. You didn't look at the balancing factors that have to be weighed against income. Income is one thing. Your income is only there so that it can outgo. You have to pay your student debts. You have to pay to survive. But that's, surviving doesn't matter. It's the student debts that are really the issue here. You can't simply quote income rates without also discussing the amount of student loans. The only time he really mentions it here is, anecdotes may be real, yet the conventional wisdom often exaggerates the problem. Among four-year college graduates who took out loans, average debt is about $25,000. So really, he's minimizing the issue. He's He's pretending that it's not a real thing. It's only $25,000 in debt. Only $25,000 in debt. Is he talking about the interest that comes along with that? Is he talking about the taxes that you're also having to pay when you're making enough money to pay back your student loans? No, he doesn't fucking reference that because that wouldn't play into his narrative. He's going to stick with the income and he's going to make a passing little pseudo-anecdotal reference to debt because he doesn't fucking understand debt. He doesn't get it. He thinks school is great because school. That's his reasoning. School is great because school. Oh my fucking God. This guy right here. Anyway, When researchers try to tease out whether education does much to cause these benefits, the answer appears to be yet no, it doesn't, David. The answer appears to be no. It appears to be no. Going to college, going to any sort of higher level education right now, unless you are coming from money, is going to put you at least $25,000 in debt. You are only basing that $25,000 off of a bachelor's degree. Do tell me, David, what kind of job you can get with a bachelor's degree, and maybe reference what kind of bachelor degrees are being given, because I can tell you for goddamn certain, if you come out with a bachelor's in accounting, you're going to be much more marketable than if you come out with a bachelor's in, I don't know, fine arts or something about my vagina. I mean, it's the plain fucking truth. So you can try to minimize the figure of $25,000 as much as you want, but it comes down to the individuals that are graduating and their marketability as to whether or not that $25,000 is a big deal. And for people like myself, we didn't just stop at a bachelor's degree. We were looking for a professional degree. So we're looking more at like $100,000 in debt. And especially for people like me, I didn't have a choice. I would have rather worked my way through law school. But because of ABA requirements, I wasn't allowed to work my first year. In the last 2 years, I can only work 20 hours a week. You cannot afford law school and to survive without being able to work at least full time. And it needs to be a good job at that. It couldn't have been just some regular little old job. But I'm getting I'm choking and I'm getting sidetracked. Again, God, it's really easy to do that here. He goes on to talk about how the voucher system and this whole freedom of choice versus managed competition has sparked this charged debate. And then he attempts to divide it into two groups as far as this debate is concerned. And it's funny how he leads off. I mean, actually, that's a reoccurring theme. The way he leads things off is rather funny. And by funny, I mean underhanded. This guy's slimy as shit. On one side, the caricature of defenders of the traditional public schools who believe in generous funding, small class sizes, and teacher training. I'm not so sure about this small class size thing, and maybe that's what they want, but it certainly hasn't been what they've been affecting lately, especially when you're bringing in, I don't know, a bunch of refugees and undocumented migrants, illegal migrants. Sorry. When you're bringing them in, especially when you're not regulating the migration, it's damn near impossible to control your class size. And then he says the other side of the argument are those who believe in vouchers, charter schools, and standardized. This is what I'm talking about. No. There is no. If you believe in standardized tests, you believe in state funding. We're not talking about professional tests, professional degrees, and I don't want to get into licensing and certification as well, because there's lots of arguments to be had as far as too much governmental authority there. But this is what he thinks. He thinks if you support freedom of choice in education, that you want standardized tests. No. So this is what. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's not slimy. Maybe David genuinely is just this fucking ignorant. But I highly doubt it. What he's doing here is trying to lump people into groups and then set them against each other. And more importantly, what he's trying to do is lump his own group of progressives together and turn them against everybody else. And he doesn't want to blame standardized tests on the Democrats, because he knows they're not popular. So what is he going to do? He's just going to go ahead and throw that over onto the oppositional side. Not only is he going to throw that on to the oppositional side, he uses these little nuances in his language. Generous funding, so-called reformers, just these slight touches. He constantly adds them throughout his article, progressively creating a broader and broader divide, which I mean is it's the general strategy of the left right now. And then he creates that an even broader divide by painting DeVos as this hardcore reformer. So he's already said reformers are so-called, they're dubious. They don't really have much of a position to stand on as far as he's concerned. But Betsy DeVos, well, she's hardcore. So that makes her even worse. And what does she support? She supports vouchers and charters. Hardcore traditionalists apparently oppose both. Well, I think that would be your progressive end. So this it may not appear to be, but this is one of the most important sets of statements in his article, because this is where he distinctly creates the divide. So he paints DeVos as the hardcore so-called reformer. So that's the far right he has distinguished in his article. And now he's got hardcore traditionalists oppose both. That is him speaking to the hardcore left without being direct about it. That's him talking to his own readership, his own basis in progressives. And basically saying if you oppose both vouchers and charters, you're too hardcore. And we'll see why he's saying that later on in the article. It's pretty clear. He's trying to cultivate this sense of almost like a unity, like you're on a team. And he wants to alienate anybody who doesn't want to play by the team's rules. Again, this classic strategy of the left. This is what we've been seeing so fucking much lately, and just blatant about it. He goes on to say vouchers have been disappointing. They're based on free market theory that parents will choose good schools over bad ones. It's a reasonable theory, and vouchers can have benefits like allowing children to leave dangerous schools. David, I would say that's a very fucking important facet of the voucher system. You cannot teach a child if he has been shot. I mean, you can't teach him anything other than a traumatic experience. And I don't think that's what they're going to school to learn, is it? This next paragraph was something else that made me fucking laugh, because I don't think Mr. Lionheart realized what he said here. So, for the most part, though identifying a good school is hard for parents, conventional wisdom usually defines a good school as one attended by high-achieving students, which is easy to measure. But that's akin to concluding that all of LeBron James' coaches have been geniuses. David, I really hope you go back and look at this sentence, because I don't think that much of the left, or much of the progressive base for that matter, is going to agree with the implications here. Because what you're implying, and again, this is why I don't think you realize what you were saying. What you're implying here is that just like not all basket players are LeBron James, not all basket players, I'm not talking about pro basketball players, I'm talking about people who play basketball. Not all people who play basketball are 7 feet tall or higher. Not all people who play basketball can sprint from one end of the court to the other. Not all people who play basketball can dunk. You're right. That has nothing to do with genius coaches. That has to do with raw, natural ability. Do you realize what you just said here, David? Do you fucking realize what you said? You said some people are simply smarter than others. That's what you said. That is what this paragraph means. And I only wish you had realized it when you wrote it, because it's the truth. Because that's the truth, and that's why private schools should exist. Not everybody needs to go to the same level of schooling. Schooling does not make you more marketable. Your characteristics, your abilities make you marketable, and it's for education to sharpen those. That's how it works, David. But let's go on. This is where he starts to create this distinction between, well, obviously there's a distinction. This is where he outlines it. The distinction between voucher programs and charter school systems. And this is what he seems to be a fan of. Charter school systems are subject to governmental oversight and evaluation. They're still subject to standardized tests. It's different in different parts of the world, but in the United States, charter schools are publicly funded but privately ran schools. So I would ask, what's the fucking point? If you're privately run but publicly funded, You're publicly run. I mean, I'm open to the idea there's some more wiggle room here, because there's, in theory, a more accessible channel for parents and administrators and teachers to affect the day-to-day operation of a charter school. But it's still subject to the oversight of a state government and standardized tests, which, as I've mentioned before, are not market-facing and therefore do not add to your value and will not help you make any more money. They will not make you happier. They will not make you healthier, especially right now. They're just lumping you in a big fucking petri dish. It goes on to talk about various charter schools in different states. I'm in Florida. I grew up with Florida charter schools. I had some siblings that went to one. And it wasn't bad. It was a nice school, but it was nothing special. It was no better than the public school I attended. It was just farther out in the fucking woods, and honestly seemed like it didn't get as much funding as the public school. And then, on to our next part. Mr. David cites Douglas Harris here. And this is what I mentioned first, saying this is what it all boils down to: managed competition versus free market. This is the battle that David Leonhardt is trying to wage, and he wants to win it for managed competition. He's afraid of the free market. It's not surprising. Why? Because the free market would require that he actually, research his work, put some genuine critical thought into it, instead of making, quote, easy ideological conclusions. It's definitely important to note here that he says it's crucial to his ideology is that charter schools are open to all comers. This says it all, and this is why he wants managed competition. He doesn't want schools to be able to cater to a higher level of students. He wants everybody to be lumped in together. He's a fucking communist. That's really, he wants a communistic, socialistic school. It's that fucking simple. He doesn't want real competition in the school. School benefits extend beyond test scores to more meaningful metrics like college grade. Meaningful metrics like college graduate. See, he doesn't understand what a meaningful metric is. This is the actual basis for his entire reasoning, is the lack of understanding what meaningful metrics are. You can't say that a voucher system isn't working simply because students aren't performing as well on state tests. Perhaps it's those state tests that have little to do with reality. The fact is, with a private school, if the parents aren't happy, if the students aren't happy, they don't go. They can pick another school. They could go back to the public school. They could go to a charter school. They have choices. With the voucher system, these parents are, yes, they're getting some help with these vouchers, but they are having to go out of their way to get their students into schools that they have chosen. And David doesn't like that. David wants all of the kids to be forced to go to a school that is overseen by a government. And that's why he's trying to push charter schools. He's trying to push charter schools as basically a diet version of government schools. Because he knows that private schools, they aren't controlled by the government at all. Private schools are controlled by the people who are funding them. So instead of losing the choice in education battle entirely to private schools, he wants to try to mitigate the loss into charter schools. Are charter schools better than public schools in regards to choice? I think most of the time, yeah. I haven't had a very easy time nailing down those statistics. I know they're there. I would have to cross-reference a lot of graduation, employment, and all of that, and I just simply don't have time to do that right now. But when you look at the structure of charter schools, the fact remains that they are subject to government control. They are subject to these state standardized tests that have been proven to not help. Please show me a study where these standardized tests have been shown to increase productivity, increase happiness, increase income, increase marketability. It's not there. Those numbers aren't there. Please, somebody shock me and show me they're there so I can have a new look on the world. But as it stands, this entire article, an underhanded attempt to try and limit your freedom in choice of education, under the guise of telling you the choice is better. It's fucking disgusting, is what it is. It really is. And, I'm sure he thought he was being really clever about this. Maybe he even thought he was right. But that's what's fucking scary. Because the title of this article translates to choice isn't working, but choice is. And that's because he wants you decide with managed choice. He doesn't want you to actually have freedom. You shouldn't be okay with that. And honestly, this is the best part. His comments show that people aren't.